find out.
All right, we're going to talk about bug out vehicles. I did a separate video maybe a year ago, kind of impromptu. I did it actually as I was driving on the way to an off-road event. This is going to be a somewhat different style than that. So in that video, I really spoke about kind of in generality, this is the decision-making process to select a bug out vehicle. Today I'm going to talk about my bug out vehicle and my decision-making process. Before we start, this is going to be a two-part series. Part one, I'm going to talk about the decisions I made and why I made them, and then part two, I'm going to go over current modifications, planned modifications, and for me, how I see the ideal bug out vehicle being created. So that second video is going to be on Patreon. So go ahead and check out our Patreon. For the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you can get access to Patreon exclusive content, monthly quick tips, live streams, things like that, a discount on consulting services and whatnot. So let's get into it. So the big thing as you go about deciding what you want to do for a bug out vehicle, you have to first figure out what you're preparing for, okay? And you'll see arguments and discussions happen on the Facebook groups and YouTube and whatnot. And a lot of it is because people aren't correctly addressing this first issue. So for me, because reality is if you're preparing for an EMP versus economic collapse versus scarcity of resources versus some kind of ecological disaster, your goals will be different. So my main concern, EMP is not the main driver. It's in the back of my mind, but really it is economic collapse / severe downturn, which would cause prices to increase on commodities and whatnot, which would also cause fuel spikes, which we'll talk about that, or the cost of fuel going up. And then the other one is you see the government is moving towards more and more control, right? The government is becoming more and more authoritarian. And the push towards electric vehicles, one of the things I don't like about it is the electric vehicles and really most modern vehicles are more and more computer controlled than they were before. And that gives an outside agency or person the ability to control your vehicle. They can track your vehicle, they can control it. You can hack into a lot of modern vehicles. Think about the computer system in your vehicle that allows the radar cruise control and the lane keeping assist features and all the sensors and the blind spot monitoring, over-the-air updates, GPS navigation. Think about what that requires. Your vehicle can stop and speed up on its own. It can also turn the steering wheel on its own. It knows where you are because of the navigation. And over-the-air updates means that a company can make software changes without your approval. So if things got really bad, whether that is a social credit system or just class warfare where, hey, you know what, you are the peasants and we are the rulers, so too bad, you only get to drive 30 miles a day, let's say, right? An interesting thing to note too, I was talking with someone on Facebook about our bug out vehicle selection. Interesting thing is he and I approached the same problem two different ways, okay? He actually got a RAV4, and we had this discussion when gas prices skyrocketed. And basically his point was that he saw this coming with the economic strains, and he wanted something with mild off-road capability. Again, he neither one of us are planning on doing hardcore rock crawling. It's really just the ability to get off of the road and not get stuck. And so he got an off-road model RAV4, modified it, but his point was basically as the government jacks up, they'll make decisions to purposely jack up the fuel prices to price us out of internal combustion engines and into electric. He said, listen, you've got your 4Runner that's got 18 on the highway, 19, and I've got my RAV4 that's getting 35, 40 on the highway. It's a lot more economical, and I'm less affected by their tactics. 100% valid point, right? And my counter to that was, I also saw that. My concern was parts availability and longevity of the vehicle, because I think we're going to get to a point where what you have is what you have, and you have to maintain it. And if it breaks down, or if it catastrophically fails, you're just out of luck. And I knew that the fuel would be the Achilles heel, and I've got plans to offset that, storing more fuel, getting a motorcycle to allow me to commute to work sometimes, stuff like that. But it was really interesting. We had a good discussion about it, and it's a good example of we both, even with us both seeing the same scenario that we are preparing for, he had a completely different approach. He understood the limitations of his approach, and he had a plan for it. And I had a different approach, and I understood the limitations of my approach, and I had a different solutions for that. And so that's a really good example. When you're having a discussion with people, when you're going through this yourself, there's more than one way to skin a cat. As you figure this out. So that combined with the economic issues, which the concerns that are brought up to me were things like parts being unavailable. So what I envisioned was a scenario where in the future I may not be able to afford to buy newer vehicles, or may not be allowed to, for one. So what I have is what I've got. So I wanted something that was durable, reliable, and could last forever. I liked mechanical simplicity, okay? And then something that lacked a lot of the modern computers. I also wanted decent off-road capability because I also like to have an adventure vehicle and something that is capable, whether that is responding during a storm and being able to do mild or light off-roading just to get around clogged highways and whatnot. It could be as simple as I'm on the highway, traffic's backed up, I go across the median and get on the other highway and go the other direction. Having a properly equipped four-wheel drive vehicle can make that possible. Or maybe it's hopping a curb and then doing that. If you don't have the ground clearance, you're not going to make it, okay? All that drove me into a 5th generation Toyota 4Runner, right? As you can see. And the reason is powertrain has been the same for about 20 years. The V6 went through a minor / moderate update probably about a decade ago. But really, for the most part, the engine, transmission is the same. This is a 2019. The transmission is the same 5-speed transmission that they've been using for 20 years. There's no parking sensors. It's still got hydraulic power steering. There's no lane keep assist. 2019 was the last year before they added radar cruise control. There's no radar cruise control. There's not even automatic climate control in this model. There's no automatic headlights, high beams. It's very basic. It's really a 90s technology vehicle that is still currently being produced. That's what I liked. The mechanical reliability. It's been around for forever. They're incredibly popular in the overlanding community. They run and run and run. You take care of it, you'll get 500,000 miles, no problem. You can't control the vehicle because there's no electronic link anywhere. So you can't control the vehicle. You can't take over the vehicle, and you can't track it. Naturally, it comes with a navigation system that's relatively easy to disable. But really, as far as computer controlled, like for example, a lot of modern cars have a separate computer for the transmission. This one doesn't. It just has, I believe it has 5 sensors, right? Input speed, output speed, temperature, and a few pressure sensors, and that's about it. Very simple. Like I said, I don't think there's any vehicle being manufactured today with a 5-speed transmission. That's the same 5-speed they're making for 20 years. They're bulletproof. That was a big driving factor. Then I see the overlanding community using these. They are extremely off-road capable. So, you might be asking why I didn't go with something bigger than like a Sequoia. So for me, it was about a balance. It doesn't get great fuel economy. It's, I want to say 18, 19 on the highway, maybe 20 on the 2-wheel drive models, but that's 4-wheel drive. So let's say 19 on the highway, 17 city. Sequoia is even worse. The old generation Sequoias, which we know to be bulletproof, are even worse, right? If I went smaller like a RAV4, then you get into less off-road capability, less space and whatnot. So this is kind of a good median. Smaller vehicles are, it's not small, but smaller vehicles are more maneuverable on tight spaces in trails, parking lots. It gets better fuel economy than like, let's say a Sequoia or a Tundra. So I picked that kind of happy median. It can tow 5,000 pounds, so not as much as a Sequoia or a Tundra, but that's kind of where I'm at. And you'll see, if I haven't already put in the video, you'll see footage of me going off-road with it. And so part of my philosophy with building out this vehicle is also going off-road with local groups, because it is a skill set. So I can have all the equipment I want. If I don't actually understand how to use it, It's why you see videos, a new vehicle come out, and one of the first things you'll see on the internet is people getting stuck, right? That's why. I mean, they don't actually understand what they're doing, and you could have all the equipment in the world. It doesn't mean you're going to know how to use it. So, also, the other thing, too, and I'll get into that with the part 2 of the series, um, it drove my modification. So I had an idea of what I wanted to do first, and then once I actually went off-roading, got some experience, talked to experienced people, it changed my priorities. So it's not a 3-row SUV, it's just a 2-row SUV, decent cargo room in the back. Part of my plan is if I had to leave somewhere, I'm not going to abandon my pets. I got a dog and a cat. So for kids, dog, cat, all that kind of stuff, having the space to take stuff, them and their stuff, is also factored into my decision-making process. The ability to tow a trailer. It's got decent range. I can extend the range on it by either. There's different things you could do. You could replace a spare tire with an auxiliary fuel tank. You can carry jerry cans with you and whatnot. But I wanted something that was an all-around good performer, something well-balanced that I could press into an off-roading role if I need to, or could stay on the highway. You'll notice I didn't get a 20 or 30-year-old vehicle. It crossed my mind. I thought about getting an old Land Cruiser, and I know it's real popular to get like the older Chevy Suburban and stuff like that. They're great vehicles. My main, the thing that really stopped me from getting that is the age of the vehicle. Even if the vehicles are built well mechanically and they last a long time, rubber seals will still age out. They will crack out. Components in the vehicle are going to have to be changed. So you get a 30-year-old vehicle, it might be mechanically well built, but you're still going to have to deal with all that stuff. Versus a 2019, I've got almost 100,000 miles on it, so I'm racking up the miles. But again, it's a new manufactured vehicle, so a lot of those rubber components, they're going to last a long time. And especially since I'm not the first owner, but I've had it for a couple of years now, I'm able to treat that rubber and do all kinds of things to prolong the life of the vehicle. And then also, if you buy, let's say, one of these older vehicles that's been around or that has 150,000 miles, you don't know how it's been maintained. So luckily, I've been the one doing most of the maintenance on this thing. So whether it's the transmission fluid changes, coolant, front diff, rear diff, transfer case, oil changes, brakes, tires, all that kind of stuff, I've done the most of it, so I know it's been well taken care of. All right, so that about wraps up for this. I want to see comments below. I want to know what your thoughts on whether or not you even need a bug-out vehicle to begin with, and if you do, what have you selected, or what do you want to select, and what scenario are you preparing for? Part 2 is going to be on Patreon, and that's where I walk through modifications I've done and what I'm planning to do, and how, to me, that fits into what a good, balanced bug-out vehicle is. I think there's a lot of cool guy theatrics in the bug-out vehicle arena where guys just want to build the baddest rig that they can, and that's cool. I mean, I get it. When I go off-roading, there are guys with some really bad rigs, but for most of us, that is not really the smart approach to this. So go ahead and head over to our Patreon, check it out. I'll leave the link in the description below. Stay safe, stay prepared.